start falling, 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 'cause we'll start falling. does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Ooh, can we switch up all the rules and imagine a utopia? Darling, I'm just so fed up with these expectations. They keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. it up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And
response to these events, the Federal Reserve, working with the Treasury Department and the
ميتينج
FDIC,
مباشرة
took
الإخوان.
decisive actions to protect the U.S. economy and to strengthen public confidence in our banking system.
So
These actions demonstrate that all depositors' savings and the banking system are safe. With the support of the Treasury, the Federal Reserve Board created the Bank Term Funding Program to ensure that banks that hold safe and liquid assets can, if needed, borrow reserves against those assets at par. This program, along with our long-standing discount window, is effectively meeting the unusual funding needs that some banks have faced and makes clear that ample liquidity in the system is available. Our banking system is sound and resilient with strong capital and liquidity. We will continue to closely monitor conditions in the banking system and are prepared to use all of our tools as needed to keep it safe and sound. In addition, we are committed to learning the lessons from this episode and to work to prevent events like this from happening again. Turning to the broader economy and monetary policy, inflation remains too high and the labor market continues to be very tight. My colleagues and I understand the hardship that high inflation is causing, and we remain strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal. Price stability is the responsibility of the Federal Reserve. Without price stability, the economy does not work for anyone. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. The U.S. economy slowed significantly last year, with real GDP rising at a below-trend pace of 0.9%. Consumer spending appears to have picked up this quarter, although some of that strength may reflect the effects of swings in the weather across the turn of the year. In contrast, activity in the housing sector remains weak, largely reflecting higher mortgage rates. Higher interest rates and slower output growth also appear to be weighing on business fixed investment. Committee participants generally expect subdued growth to continue. As shown in our summary of economic projections, the median projection for real GDP growth stands at just 0.4% this year and 1.2% next year, well below the median estimate of the longer-run normal growth rate. And nearly all participants see the risks to GDP growth as weighted to the downside. Yet the labor market remains extremely tight. Job gains have picked up in recent months, with employment rising by an average of 351,000 jobs per month over the last 3 months. The unemployment rate remained low in February at 3.6%. The labor force participation rate has edged up in recent months, and wage growth has shown some signs of easing. However, with job vacancies still very high, labor demand substantially exceeds the supply of available workers. FOMC participants expect supply and demand conditions in the labor market to come into better balance over time, easing upward pressures on wages and prices. The median unemployment rate projection in the SEP rises to 4.5% at the end of this year and 4.6% at the end of next year. Inflation remains well above our longer-run goal of 2%. Over the 12 months ending in January, total PCE prices rose 5.4%, excluding the volatile food and energy categories. Excluding those, core PCE prices rose 4.7%. In February, the 12-month change in the CPI came in at 6%, and the change in the core CPI was 5.5%. Inflation has moderated somewhat since the middle of last year, but the strength of these recent readings indicates that inflation pressures continue to run high. The median projection in the SEP for total PCE inflation is 3.3% for this year, 2.5% next year, and 2.1% in 2025. The process of getting inflation back down to 2% has a long way to go and is likely to be bumpy. Despite elevated inflation, longer-term inflation expectations appear to remain well anchored, as reflected in a broad range of surveys of households, businesses, and forecasters, as well as measures from financial markets. The Fed's monetary policy actions are guided by our mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. My colleagues and I are acutely aware that high inflation imposes significant hardship as it erodes purchasing power, especially for those least able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation. We are highly attentive to the risks that high inflation poses to both sides of our mandate, and we are strongly committed to returning inflation to our 2% objective. At today's meeting, the committee raised the target range for the federal funds rate by a quarter percentage point, bringing the target range to 4.75% to 5%. And we are continuing the process of significantly reducing our securities holdings. Since our previous FOMC meeting, economic indicators have generally come in stronger than expected, demonstrating greater momentum in economic activity and inflation. We believe, however, that events in the banking system over the past 2 weeks are likely to result in tighter credit conditions for households and businesses, which would in turn affect economic outcomes. It is too soon to determine the extent of these effects, and therefore too soon to tell how monetary policy should respond. As a result, we no longer state that we anticipate that ongoing rate increases will be appropriate to quell inflation. Instead, we now anticipate that some additional policy firming may be appropriate. We will closely monitor incoming data and carefully assess the actual and expected effects of tighter credit conditions on economic activity, the labor market, and inflation. And our policy decisions will reflect that assessment. In our SEP, each FOMC participant wrote down an appropriate path for the federal funds rate based on what that participant judges to be the most likely scenario going forward. If the economy evolves as projected, the median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 5.1% at the end of this year, 4.3% at the end of 2024, and 3.1% at the end of 2025. These are little changed from our December projections, reflecting offsetting factors. These projections are not a committee decision or plan. If the economy does not evolve as projected, the path for policy will adjust as appropriate to foster our maximum employment and price stability goals. We will continue to make our decisions meeting by meeting based on the totality of the incoming data and their implications for the outlook for economic activity and inflation. We remain committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal and to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Reducing inflation is likely to require a period of below-trend growth and some softening in labor market conditions. Restoring price stability is essential to set the stage for achieving maximum employment and stable prices over the longer run. To conclude, we understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Colby Smith with the Financial Times. How confident is the committee that the recent stress that we've seen and you've alluded to is contained at this point, and that deposit flight among mid-sized lenders in particular has ceased?
Thanks. So I guess our view is that the banking system is sound and it's resilient. It's got strong capital and liquidity. We took powerful actions with Treasury and the FDIC, which demonstrate that all depositors' savings are safe and that the banking system is safe. Deposit flows in the banking system have stabilized over the last week. And the last thing I'll say is that we're undertaking a thorough internal review that will identify where we can strengthen supervision and regulation.
Okay, just a quick follow-up. I mean, given all of the stress and the uncertainty that you've also alluded to in the statement, how seriously was a pause considered for this meeting?
So we did consider that in the days running up to the meeting, and you see the decision that we made, which I'll say a couple things about. First, it was supported by a very strong consensus, and I'll be happy to explain why. And really it is that the intermeeting data on inflation and the labor market came in stronger than expected, and really before the recent events, we were clearly on track to continue with ongoing rate hikes. In fact, as of a couple of weeks ago, it looked like we'd need to raise rates over the course of the year, more than we'd expected at the time of the SEP in December, the time of the December meeting. We are committed to restoring price stability, and all of the evidence says that the public has confidence that we will do so, that we'll bring inflation down to 2% over time. It is important that we sustain that confidence with our actions as well as our words. So we also assess, as I mentioned, that the events of the last 2 weeks are likely to result in some tightening of credit conditions for households and businesses, and thereby weigh on demand, on the labor market, and on inflation. Such a tightening in financial conditions would work in the same direction as rate tightening. In principle, as a matter of fact, you can think of it as being the equivalent of a rate hike, or perhaps more than that. Of course, it's not possible to make that assessment today with any precision whatsoever. So our decision was to move ahead with a 25 basis point hike and to change our guidance, as I mentioned, from ongoing hikes to some additional hikes, maybe some policy firming may be appropriate. So going forward, as I mentioned, in assessing the need for further hikes, we'll be focused, as always, on the income data and the evolving outlook, and in particular on our assessment of the actual and expected effects of credit tightening.
Mr. Chairman, can you explain the difference between ongoing rate increases and firming? Does firming imply a rate increase per se, or could policy firm without you increasing rates?
No, I think it's meant to refer to our policy rate. Really, I would focus on the words may and some, as opposed to ongoing. So we clearly were, what we were doing there was taking on board trying to reflect the uncertainty about what will happen. I mean, it's possible that this will turn out to have very modest effects. These events will turn out to be very, very modest effects on the economy, in which case, and inflation will continue to be strong, in which case, the path might look different. It's also possible that this potential tightening will contribute significant tightening in credit conditions over time, and in principle, if that means that monetary policy may have less work to do. We simply don't know.
Do you have concerns that the hike you did today could further exacerbate the problem in the banks?
No, I mean, with our monetary policy, we're really focused on macroeconomic outcomes. In particular, we're focused on this potential credit tightening and what can that produce in the way of tighter credit conditions. I think when we think about the situation in the banks, we're focused on our financial stability tools, in particular, our lending facilities, the discount window, and also the new facility.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, in your testimony 2 weeks ago, you had indicated you thought the terminal rate would be higher. Obviously, that was before the stress in the banking sector. And I realize there's a lot of uncertainty, but can you explain at all to what extent your forecasts or those of your colleagues or those of the board staff incorporated today a material tightening of credit availability because of the stress in the banking sector, or are you waiting to see it in the data before you incorporate that potential tightening into your forecasts?
So, we've just come from an FOMC meeting, and, the people who write the minutes will be very carefully counting, but I'll tell you what I heard. What I heard was a significant number of people saying that they anticipated there would be some tightening of credit conditions, and that would really have the same effects as our policies do, and that therefore they were including that in their assessment, and that if that did turn out not to be the case, that in principle you'd need more rate hikes. So some people did reflect that in their SEP forecasts. I think there may also just have been, remember, this is 12 days ago. We're trying to assess something that just is so recent, and it's very difficult. There's so much uncertainty. So December was a good place to start, and we wound up with very similar outcomes for December. And in a way, the data in the first part, the first 5 weeks of the intermeeting period, pointed to stronger inflation and stronger labor market, so that pointed to higher rates. And then this latter part, kind of the possibility of credit conditions tightening, really offset that effectively.
To follow up, have you considered at all whether your primary tool, the funds rate, is going to be enough to sustain the kind of tighter financial conditions that you believe will be necessary without doing significant damage to the banking sector? Have you, for example, considered changing reserve requirements, selling assets out of the system open market account as a way to better achieve tighter financial conditions that don't accelerate deposit erosion, for example, from banks?
we know that we have other tools in effect, but no, we think our monetary policy tool works, and we think, many banks, our rate hikes were well telegraphed to the market, and many banks have managed to handle them.
Victoria. Hi, Victoria Guida with Politico. I wanted to ask, you, along with the FDIC and the Treasury, the Fed Board decided to invoke the systemic risk exception to allow uninsured depositors to be protected at these two banks. And I was just wondering if you could speak to why that decision was made. Was it purely a confidence issue, or was there a concern that there would be some sort of economic contagion or financial contagion from the failure of these banks?
The issue was really not about those specific banks, but about the risk of a contagion to other banks and to the financial markets more broadly. That was the issue.
Okay, and then can you also, just to follow up, can you speak to the role that you will be playing in the Fed's internal investigation on its supervision and regulation?
So Vice Chair Barr is of course leading that review, and he's responsible for it in his capacity as Vice Chair for Supervision. I realized, right away that there was going to be a need for a review. I mean, the question we were all asking ourselves over that first weekend was, how did this happen? And so what we did was early Monday morning, we sat down and said, let's do this. And he was obviously going to lead it in his capacity. So I don't, my role was to announce it, and I get briefed on it, but I'm not involved in the work of it.
Hi, Chair Powell, Howard Schneider from Reuters. So I want to go back to your February press conference. You mentioned the word disinflation, I believe, 9 or 10 times, a process that you felt was, I forget the word you used, but gratefully underway or something like that. Is disinflation still occurring in the U.S. today?
Yes, I mean, what actually happened, Howard, was I got the question 12 times. So maybe it's a feature, not a bug. But yeah, absolutely absolutely the same. The story is intact. So it's really three parts, right? Goods inflation's been coming down now for 6 months. It's proceeding more slowly than we would have liked, but it's certainly proceeding. Housing services is really a matter of time passing. We continue to see the new leases being signed at much lower levels of inflation. So that's 44% of the core PCE index, where you've got a story that's ongoing. Where we didn't have in February, and we still don't have now, is a sign of progress in the non-housing services sector, and that is, that's just something that will have to come through softening demand, and perhaps some softening in labor market conditions. We don't see that yet, and that's of course 56% of the index. So the story is pretty much the same. I will say that the inflation data that we got, to your point, really pointed to stronger inflation.
If I could follow up on that, I was curious why you don't see more coming from the credit crunch, because it seems to me that's something that you'd actually welcome to a degree and expect. And are you not seeing more coming from that because you don't know, or because you just don't want to have another round of wishful thinking? So
it's really just a question of not knowing at this point. There's a great deal of literature on the connection between tighter credit conditions, economic activity, hiring, and inflation. Very large body of literature. The question is, how significant will this credit tightening be, and how sustainable will it be? That's the issue. And we don't really see it yet. It's so people are making estimates, people are publishing estimates, and it's very kind of rule of thumb guesswork almost at this point. But we think it's potentially quite real, and that argues for being alert as we go forward, as we think about further rate hikes. For us, we'll be paying attention to the actual and expected effects from that.
Gina. Hi, Chair Powell. Gina Smilik from the New York Times. Thank you for taking our questions. I wonder if you could talk a little bit, I know that you've got your internal review coming, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what you think happened with oversight at Silicon Valley Bank, and whether this suggests that something about regulation and supervision needs to actually change going forward. And I wonder, how can the American people have confidence that there aren't other weaknesses out there in the banking system, given that this one got missed, as you noted?
So let me say what I think happened, and then I'll come to the questions around supervision. So at a basic level, Silicon Valley Bank management failed badly They grew the bank very quickly. They exposed the bank to significant liquidity risk and interest rate risk, didn't hedge that risk. We now know that supervisors saw these risks and intervened. We know that the public saw all this. We know that SVB experienced an unprecedentedly rapid and massive bank run. So this is a very large group of connected depositors, concentrated group of connected depositors, in a very, very fast run, faster than the historical record would suggest. So for us, for our part, we're doing a review of supervision and regulation. My only interest is that we identify what went wrong here. How did this happen is the question. What went wrong? Try to find that. We will find that. And then make an assessment of what are the right policies to put in place so that it doesn't happen again, and then implement those policies. It would be inappropriate for me at this stage to offer my views on what the answers might be. I simply can't do that. Vice Chair Barr is leading this, and I think he's testifying next week. But that will be up to him. So that's really where it is. The review is going to be thorough and transparent. It is clear to your last question. It's clear that we do need to strengthen supervision and regulation. And I assume that there will be recommendations coming out of the report, and I plan on supporting them and supporting their implementation.
And the final point, can we feel confident that these weaknesses don't exist elsewhere, given that they got missed at this bank?
These are not weaknesses that are at all broadly through the banking system. This was a bank that was an outlier in terms of both its percentage of uninsured deposits and in terms of its holdings of duration risk. And again, supervisors did get in there, and they were, as you know, obviously, they were on this issue, but nonetheless, this still happened. And so that's really the nature of the the review, is to discover that.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. You've been very consistent in saying that the Fed would be raising interest rates and then holding them there for quite some time. Following today's decision, the markets have now priced in one more increase in May, and then every meeting the rest of this year, they're pricing in rate cuts. Are they getting this totally wrong from the Fed, or is there something different about the way you're looking at it, given that you're now thinking that moves might be appropriate as opposed to ongoing?
So we published an SEP today, as you will have seen, and it shows that basically participants expect relatively slow growth, a gradual rebalancing of supply and demand in the labor market, with inflation moving down gradually. In that most likely case, if that happens, participants don't see rate cuts this year. They just don't. I would just say, as always, the path of the economy is uncertain, and policy is going to reflect what actually happens rather than what we write down in the SEP. But that's not our baseline expectation.
Well, if I could follow up and ask, as you look forward into the rest of the year here, are you saying that what you see and the 5.1% basically consensus is based on it will be sufficiently restrictive, or is it leavened by the idea of you don't know what's going to happen? In other words, what should people think about in terms of how the Fed thinks about how far it is from the terminal?
It's going to depend. Remember, we're looking, for purposes of our monetary policy tool, we're looking at what's happening among the banks and asking, is there going to be some tightening in credit conditions? And then we're thinking about that as effectively doing the same thing that rate hikes do. So in a way, that substitutes for rate hikes. So the key is we have to have policies got to be tight enough to bring inflation down to 2% over time. It doesn't all have to come from rate hikes. It can come from tighter credit conditions. So that we're looking at, and it's highly uncertain how long this situation will be sustained or how significant any of those effects would be. So we're just going to have to watch. In the meantime, and obviously at the end of the day, we will do enough to bring inflation down to 2%. No one should doubt that.
Hi, Chair Powell. Rachel Siegel from the Washington Post. Thank you for taking our questions. I know we've talked a bit about how Silicon Valley Bank was unique to a certain sector of the economy, but there's also growing concern that there are financial stability risks from the commercial real estate market and loans that will begin to roll over later this year and next. and that smaller regional banks also disproportionately hold those loans. Is there a risk that could mimic the kind of what we saw with SVB to banks that disproportionately are focused in commercial real estate?
So, we're well aware of the concentrations people have in commercial real estate. I really don't think it's comparable to this. The banking system is strong, it is sound, it is resilient, it's well capitalized, and I really don't see that as at all analogous to this.
Question, would you be open to an independent investigation separate from the Fed's probe?
I welcome. It's 100% certainty that there will be independent investigations and outside investigations and all that. So we welcome, when a bank fails their investigations, and of course, we welcome that.
Edward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Edward Lawrence from Fox Business. Inflation has been rather sticky, so do you need help from the fiscal side to get inflation down faster?
We don't assume that. We don't give advice to the fiscal authorities, and we assume that we take fiscal policy as it comes to our front door, stick it in our model along with a million other things, and we have responsibility for price stability. The Federal Reserve has responsibility for that, and nothing is going to change that. So we will get inflation down to 2% in time.
And if I can follow on that, but they're working, the spending that's happened is working against what you are doing, right? So it's prolonging inflation?
If you have to look at the impulse from spending, because spending was, of course, tremendously high during the pandemic, and then as the pandemic programs rolled off, spending actually came down. So the sort of fiscal impulse is actually not what's driving inflation right now. It was at the beginning, perhaps part of what was driving inflation, but that's not really the story now.
Let's go to Neil Irwin.
Hi, Chair Powell. Neil Irwin with Axios. Two questions about aspects of the government's response on Silicon Valley Bank 2 weekends ago. First, why is this new bank funding facility done under Emergency 13.3 authority as opposed to expansion of the discount window, changing the terms of the discount window that's been around a long time? And second, can you discuss the Fed's role in the FDIC guarantee of uninsured depositors and why there's $143 billion on your balance sheet last week supporting that deposit guarantee?
Sure. So 13.3 seemed like the right. We have a little more flexibility under Section 13.3. We've done quite a lot under the discount window as well. We needed to do a special facility that was designed a certain way, so we did it under 13.3. Really no magic to that. It's only available in unusual and exigent circumstances, and it has to meet certain requirements. But it seemed to be the right place. So with the FDIC, we're lending to the. In effect, we're lending to the bridge bank. So that's where the funds came from, and it's a loan that's 100% guaranteed by the FDIC, so there's no risk in it for us.
Chris Rugaber.
Thank you, Chris Rugaber at Associated Press. The SEP suggests one more rate hike, as does the change in the language in the statement, and which suggests that you're perhaps nearing the end of a cycle of rate hikes. Do you feel, though, that if inflation remains high, you'll be able to resume additional hikes as needed, or have you somewhat tied your hands here with these signals about rate hikes coming to an end? Thank you.
Absolutely not. No, if we need to raise rates higher, we will. I think for now, though, as I've mentioned, we see the likelihood of credit tightening. We know that can have an effect on the macroeconomy, on demand, on labor market, on inflation, and we're going to be watching to see what that is. And we'll also be watching what's happening with inflation and in the labor market. So we'll be watching all those things, and of course we will eventually get to tight enough policy to bring inflation down to 2%. We'll find ourselves at that place.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thanks for taking the question. Kyle Campbell with American Banker. I have a couple questions about the balance sheet. First of all, I'm curious at what point the financial supports that the Fed is extending through the discount window and through its enhanced lending facility might be at odds with the objective of reducing the balance sheet. And I'm also curious what your thoughts are on not just the availability of reserves, but the distribution of them throughout the banking system, and at what point you might be concerned about it being scarce for certain banks.
So So people think of QE and QT in different ways. So let me be clear about how I'm thinking about these recent developments. So the recent liquidity provision that has increased the size of our balance sheet, but the intent and the effects of it are very different from when we expand our balance sheet through purchases of longer-term securities. Large-scale purchases of long-term securities are really meant to alter the stance of policy by pushing up the price and down the rates, longer-term rates, which supports demand through channels we understand fairly well. The balance sheet expansion is really temporary lending to banks to meet those special liquidity demands created by the recent tensions. It's not intended to directly alter the stance of monetary policy. We do believe that it's working. It's having its intended effect of bolstering confidence in the banking system and thereby forestalling what might otherwise have been an abrupt and outsized tightening in financial conditions. So that's working. In terms of the distribution of reserves, we don't see ourselves as running into reserve shortages. We think that our program of allowing our balance sheet to run off predictably and passively is working. And of course, we're always prepared to change that if that changes, but we don't see any evidence that that's changed.
Hi, Chair. Katerina Saraiva with Bloomberg News. The minutes of the January-February meeting, the last meeting, indicate that you discussed the possibility of runs on non-bank financial institutions and the impact of large unrealized losses on bank portfolios. Can you talk a little bit more about that discussion, kind of what was talked about in light of that? And then why didn't the Fed, do anything about that at that point to ultimately prevent, what happened this month?
I mean, to be honest, I don't recall the specifics of that. It's quite an interesting 7 weeks, but I will tell you though that there have been presentations about interest rate risk. I mean, it's been in all the newspapers. It's not a surprise that there are institutions that have had unhedged long positions in long duration securities that have lost value as longer term rates have gone up due to our rate increases. So that's not a surprise. I think, as you know, as it is now on the public record, the supervisory team was apparently very much engaged with the bank repeatedly and was escalating, but nonetheless, what happened. And so that's really the purpose of one way to think about the review that Vice Chair Barr is conducting, is to try to understand how that happened and try to understand how we can do better and what policies we need to change. I mean, one thing is the speed of I'll come back to that, the speed of the run. It's very different from what we've seen in the past, and it does kind of suggest that there's a need for possible regulatory and supervisory changes, just because supervision and regulation need to keep up with what's happening in the world.
Can you confirm whether or not the board knew about these escalations by the examiners in San Francisco?
I will have to come back to you on that. Yeah, I don't know.
Simon Urbanovich with The Economist. Thank you very much. Chair Powell, you've stated twice today that all depositors' savings in the banking system are safe. Are you saying that de facto deposit insurance covers all savings? Shouldn't Congress have a say in that? And just by way of example, if a bank with less than $1 billion in assets failed, are you promising to bail out all of its depositors? Thanks.
Well, I'm not saying anything more than I'm saying. So, but what I'm saying is you've seen that we have the tools to protect depositors when there's a threat of serious harm to the economy or to the financial system, and we're prepared to use those tools. And I think depositors should assume that their deposits are safe.
Go to Greg Robb.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Greg Robb from MarketWatch. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit more color. You gave just a little bit of color. You said during the first week of the Silicon Valley weekend, you said the question you guys asked was, how did this happen when you saw Silicon Valley Bank? So I was wondering if you could go to the Credit Suisse merger. I mean, wasn't that the big gorilla in the room? Didn't you breathe a sigh of relief when that merger happened? Thanks.
Sure. So, that was really the Swiss government. We, of course, were following it over the course of the weekend, and we were engaged with their authorities in the way that you would expect, all the ways that you would expect. it seems to have been a positive outcome in the sense that the transaction was agreed to, and it has been the markets have accepted it, and it seems to have gone well. And I think there was a concern that it might not go well. So coming into the middle of this week, yes, I would say that has gone well so far.
Hi, thank you, Chair Powell. Nicole Goodkind with CNN Business. In the summary of economic projections, the FOMC sees the unemployment rate increasing to 4.5% this year. I'm wondering how you anticipate preventing this from snowballing while using the admittedly blunt tools at your disposal.
So that's an estimate of what will happen as demand slows and as conditions soften in the labor market. And it's a highly uncertain estimate. And we have to bring inflation down to 2%. The costs of bringing it down, there are real costs to bring it down to 2%, but the costs of failing are much higher. And if you read your history, I'm sure you have, you can see that if the central bank doesn't get inflation back in place, make sure that inflation expectations remain anchored, you can have a long series of years where inflation is high and volatile, and it's hard to invest capital. It's hard for an economy to perform well, and we're looking to avoid that, and and to get back to where we need to be, back to where we were for a quarter century, and get there as quickly as we can.
But I guess the question is, historically, it's hard to.
Mr. Mike, please.
Yes, sir.
Historically, it's been hard to contain unemployment, and the question is, do you worry about some sort of snowball effect, and how do you factor that into your projections and your thoughts?
Well, it depends on whether so recessions tend to be nonlinear, and so they're very hard to model. The models all work in a kind of linear way. If you have more of this, you get more of that. But when a recession happens, the reactions tend to be nonlinear, and that's so we don't know whether that'll happen this time. We don't know. If so, we don't know how significant it will be. And so, we're very focused on getting inflation down, and because we know in the longer run that is the thing that will most benefit the people we serve. That's how we can have we've had very strong labor markets through these long expansions that we've had. 4 of the 5 longest, or 3 of the 4 longest expansions in U.S. history have been really since the high inflation period. And the reason was inflation wasn't forcing the central bank to come in and stop an incipient or an expansion. You can have very, very long expansions without high inflation, and we had several of those, and they're very good for people. You see late in an expansion, you see low unemployment, you see the benefits of wages going to people at the lower end of the wage spectrum. It's just a place that we should try to get back to.
Jean. Hi, Chair Powell. Jean Young with Market News. I just wanted to ask, with all the events of the past 2 weeks, do you still see a possibility of a soft landing for the U.S. economy?
It's too early to say really whether these events have had much of an effect. It's hard for me to see how they would have helped the possibility, but I guess I would just say it's too early to say whether there really have been changes in that. The question will be how long this period is sustained. The longer it's sustained, then the greater will be the likely declines in or tightening in credit standards, credit availability. So we'll just have to see. I do still think, though, that there's a pathway to that. I think that pathway still exists, and we're certainly trying to find it.
Hi, Chair Powell. Nancy Marshall-Genzer with Marketplace. Just wondering how many financial institutions have been issued matters requiring attention or matters requiring immediate attention citations at this point?
How many? I don't know. But those are serious regulatory, particularly immediate attention. That's and I guess there were 6 of them. So.
And getting to the seriousness of it, how are you going to ensure that banks comply with these citations, take them seriously? How will you enforce them?
That is a great question and is right in the heart of what the review will be doing under Vice Chair Barr's leadership. So I think that's what you think about. What can we do to make sure? But again, that's not for me to answer
So
today.
you have specific thoughts on that?
Well, I see. If I did, I wouldn't share them because I really, this review is going on, and I want nothing other than us to find out what happened and why, figure out what we can do to do better, and then implement those changes. That's all I want. It's for me to be giving you my half-formed or partially informed thoughts. It just isn't appropriate. There's a real serious review going on with people from all over the Federal Reserve System who are not connected to this, to this work, not connected to this bank, and under again Vice Chair Barr's leadership, and I'm confident that it will produce a satisfactory result.
Thank you, Chair Powell. Jennifer Schonberger with Yahoo Finance. Curious, how do you view financial conditions right now? If credit becomes expensive enough, choking off growth, as you said you're watching for, would that situation warrant a rate cut? What situation would warrant a rate cut? And have the bank failures prompted any discussion around changing the implementation of the balance sheet runoff? Thank you.
So we haven't really talked about changing the balance sheet implementation. That's not something we've discussed yet. As I mentioned, we're always willing to change that if we conclude that it's appropriate, but we're really not seeing any signs there. Sorry, then the question before that was, just give me a...
Curious how you view financial conditions now, and if credit
okay.
were to tighten enough, if that would prompt a rate cut.
So financial conditions seem to have tightened, and probably by more than the traditional indexes say, because the traditional indexes are focused a lot on rates and equities, and they don't necessarily capture lending conditions. So we think that, though. So there are other measures which if they're focused on, bank lending conditions and things like that, they show some more tightening. The question for us, though, is how significant will that be, and how, what will be the extent of it, and what will be the duration of it? And then, once you know that, there's a fair amount of research about how that with broad uncertainty bands, how that works its way into the economy over what period of time. And so, so we'll be looking to see the first part of that, like how serious is this, and how does it look like it's going to be sustained? And if it is, it could easily have a significant macroeconomic effect, and we would factor that into our policy decisions. I mentioned with rate cuts, rate cuts are not in our base case, so that's all I have to say. So, thank you. Thank you very much.
That's all what he have to say. Interesting enough. السلام عليكم الإخوة الأخوات. شاهدنا الاجتماع ديال FOMC اللي كان حوالي تقريبا واحد ربع ساعة ولا نص ساعة دابا ديال الاجتماع. فالاجتماع خلص لأنهم غيرفعوا نسبة الفائدة بنسبة واحد 25 نقطة. كانوا ديجا رفعوها مع بجوج نقاط، ما عرفتش شحال طلع عليهم، المهم آخر مرة في 14 فبراير. اليوم عاودوا وكان ديك الساعات في 4.75. دابا رفعوا الفائدة عاوتاني بواحد 25 نقطة، يعني غتولي 5%. اللي قال هو ان غيديروا اي حاجه باش يسيكوريزيو هذوك الودائع ديال الناس، يعني هذوك الفلوس اللي كاين في الابناك غيحاولوا ما امكن يامنوهم، واللي عنده شي فلوس تما قال لك ما يخافش عليهم، راه الابناك راه سيكوريزي بلا 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 الى غير ذلك. المهم الهضره خاويه. سعر الفائده لا طلع، فهذا غي امباكتي الكريبتو، وكتشوفوا بان راه امباكتي الكريبتو، وراه دابا الكريبتو راه جاي نازل. الا شفتوا كيفاش يلا ديك الساعه مع كيكون كيتنشر الخبر هو الاول عاد كيدار الاجتماع. فاش تنشر الخبر شفتوا اللعب اللي كان تيكون في البيتكوين ديك الساعه بوف 27 و27 800 بوف 27 28 و600 يعني كان واحد اللعب بالثمن هنايا في هذه المنطقه هذه فت 28 و100 ديريكت عاوتاني ل 28 800 يعني هنا داو الناس ديال الشورت حيدوهم ومشاو حيدوا الناس ديال لونغ عاد دابا يبقاو جايين بوحدهم من تحت اوكي نشوفوا هاد 25 واش غتبقى تهولدي ولا لا فإلا جينا نشوفوا نديروها هنا في 5 دقائق وغنديروها في ربع ساعة وهذا غنردوه شويه للجنب اذا دابا ما بقيناش غاديين طالعين الاخوان فهذا اجابه مفيده ولا اجابه شافيه على ان سميتو الستراكتر ولا الشكل ديال ولا الاتجاه ديال السوق تغير هنا تهرس حيت الا جينا ندير واحد السلام عليكم الاخوان الاخوات غنديروا غير خلاصه ديال الاجتماع اللي طرا هنا في الايفوم ديال اليوم فالاجتماع اللي طرا اليوم هو اجتماع ديال علاش هذه ما عطاتناش اوكي يعني كيمشيو دابا بجوج نحيدو هذه كمان نجي نحيدوها هنا حيت كاين هذاك اللوغو تما الاجتماع خلص بان يرفعوا نسبة الفائدة بنسبة 25 نقطة واللي هي باد نيوز ولا اخبار سيئة للكريبتو اوكي المارشي دابا غادي ينزل غينزل يتيستي جهة 25 وابخي عاود يزيد ينزل لفين كان ربما ل 19 ولا 20 مازال ما شفناش دابا تنحكموا عليه في 25,000 فاخر مره في 14 فبراير كانت نسبه الفائده تقريبا 4.75 كانت زادت بواحد شويه اليوم قرروا ان يرفعوا نسبه الفائده كما قلنا ب 25 نقطه يعني في التوتال غتولي 5% ديال سعر الفائده و5% بزاف كما شفنا في واحد التويت تما ديال واحد الشخص قال لك ما عمرها ترفعات نسبة الفائدة ل 5% من 2007 يعني أكثر من سميتو شحال هذيك 10 12 أكثر من 16 عام أوكي ما عمرها ترفعات بهذيك النسبة ولا واحد 15 عام ما عمرها تزادت بهذيك النسبة هذيك أول مرة غترفع ل 5% وهذه كما قلنا أخبار سيئة للكريبتو وماشي إيجابية alright إلا كنا شنا هنا في الأول فاش يلا حيت كيت هذا الاجتماع هذا مهم بزاف مهم لجميع الأسواق المالية الخبر كيخرج في الصحف هو الأول من بعد كيديروا اجتماع يعني غير فاش خرج الخبر شفتوا البيتكوين هنا كان تيلعبوا به شوية في هذه البلاصة هذه بالضبط اللي هي هنا فنزل ديريكت فاش خرج الخبر ديال سميتو ديال هذا ديال 25 نقطة باش غترفع نسبة الفائدة مشى ديريكت ل 28 و100 في البلاصة رجع ل 28 و800 عاد ديك الساعة تبقى تيلعب عاوتاني شوية ديريكت عاوتاني ل 27 700 صافي من تما بقى جاي نازل alright بما أن نسبة الفائدة ترفعات ف غادي ينزل الكريبتو شوية يعني غينزل غيمشيو نتيستيو هاد 25 داكشي علاش درنا هنا هاد جوج ديال الاسهم هنا واش غيكون البوزيتيف ولا غتكون نيجاتيف فكانت نيجاتيف خاصها تزيد تنزل لتحت alright تقد تكون دائما تلاعبات ديما كاين هذيك المساله ديالها تكون تلاعبات تقد تكون تلاعبات في مارشي الا شفتوا هنايا على يديكم اليمين داير لكم الثمن ديال الدولار حتى هو راه نزل يعني اخترق هاد الريزيستنس اللي كانت ليه هنا واللي كان محافظ عليها لواحد المده طويله تقريبا شحال هادي من نهار اللي هو محافظ عليها هاد الريزيستنس اللي كاينه هنايا نحسبوها حافظ عليها تقريبا ب 41 يوم 41 يوم هو فوق هاد البلاصه هاد الريزيستنس هادي ولا هاد الدعم ديالهم اخترقها يعني غيمشي عاوتاني تيستي هاد البلاصه هادي اللي هي ديال 198 الى غير ذلك. اوكي 198 نجيبوا هذا كاع هنايا. اوكي هذا كما قلنا كاين بزاف ديال الصحف اللي كتبات عليه هنايا، كاين بزاف اللي المهم قراو الاخوان هاد لي زارتيكل تيوضحوا بزاف ديال الحوايج وتفهم باش تفهم المارشي مزيان. ما غتفهمش كلشي في النهار الاول، ولكن ملي كتبقى تستمر تقرا هذا الشيء وتتبع الاخبار وتعرف شنو كاين كتولي تفهم شويه بشويه. السد راه كيحمل غير بنقطه بنقطه، كما المعرفه والفهم ديالك للحوايج راه كيبدا شويه بشويه. هذا ايضا خبر ما هواش سميتو الستوك ماركت، الكوموديتيز، جميع انواع المارشيات الاخرين ولا الاسواق الماليه كما بيكونوا. خرجوا لنا بهذاك التصريح ديال بان احنا عندنا الكونفيدونس باقي في الابناك، احنا باقي غنعطيو ولا غنأمنوا الودائع ديال الناس. الودائع ملي كنهضر على الودائع يعني كنهضر على الفلوس، الناس اللي حاطين فلوس في البنك، فهذيك ودائع قال لك لا حنا غنسيكوريزيوهم والناس ما خصهمش يخافوا على فلوسهم. يعني هنا بحال بغا يسكتوا الناس، يقول لهم لا ما تخرجوش فلوسكم، لا تصدقوا دايرين لينا شي صداع كبير في العالم كامل. غير كونوا هانيين، فلوسكم راه مشاو فين، اللي مشات ليه شي حاجه راه غادي يردوها ليه وارتاحوا على جنب الراحه، وحنا غنبقاو نطبعوا الفلوس كما بغينا، والدولار ديالكم ما يبقى ساوي حتى حاجه وزيدوا زيد. اوكي يعني اشياء غير مباشره كريمينال، والله الا كريمينال، هاد الناس كريمينال. ودابا هادوك الناس دابا اللي البنك مشى هز فلوس ديال الناس وبدا تيتريدي بهم ولا تيداول بهم، وكان كاين المدراء ديال الشركات كيتداولوا بهم للصالح ديالهم الشخصي، ماشي حتى زعما ديال يتريديو بهم للصالح العام ديال الشارع ديال البنك ولا شي حاجه. كيسلفوا الفلوس لروسهم وتيتريديو بهم هما. شوف انت الحماق كي داير. ومشاو تي انفيستيو قال لك في الاصول ذات الامد البعيد. يلاه صافي ملي بقى طلعت النسبه صافي هذاك الاصول ذات الامد البعيد ما بقاش عندها معنى، ما بقى عندها، ما بقى ساويه والو، لان الفائده طلعت. هذوك الاصول ذات الامد البعيد الا شريتيهم ما يكسنسوا عندها معنى الا كان سميتو النسبه ديالهم ديال الفائده ناقصه شويه، لان البنك فين كيربح؟ البنك تيربح غير في نسبه الفائده. يعني البنك خدمته شنو هي؟ شنو هو البرودوي الاساسي ديال البنك؟ يعني كاينه بنكه فين كتربح البنكه؟ عندنا واحد كيجي يحط الفلوس وعندنا واحد باغي الفلوس، يعني جوج الناس، واحد عنده فلوس جاي يحطها في البنك والاخر خاصو الفلوس بغا ياخذ كريدي، بغا ياخذ واحد سميتو واحد اللون. يعني غنشدوا الفلوس ديال هذا السيد اللي حطها ونعطيوها لهذا السيد اللي بغاها، والبنك غيفرض عليه واحد 5% وغيعطي لهذا السيد اللي حط فلوس، غيعطيو لهذا السيد اللي حط فلوسه واحد ما عرفت شحال، واحد بورسون جوج كاع ماكسيموم، وغيخليو الباقي ليهم، والاخر اللي شد الكريدي راه هو اللي تيخلصهم بجوج. اوكي هذا هو البرودوي الاساسي ديال البنك، تيشد فلوس من عند واحد ويعطيها لواحد وتيربح منهم بجوج. فهاد الناس هادو مشاو بياند هادشي، يعني مشاو بعيد من هادشي، مشاو تي انفيستيو قال لك في الاصول ذات الامد البعيد ودايرين لونغ. صافي ملي كتجي دابا واحد الناس خرجوا فلوسهم بواحد الخطره، خاصك ترد الفلوس للبنك. البنك ما فيهش الفلوس، لان الفلوس اللي كانت في البنك راه استثمروهم هما في الاصول ذات الامد البعيد. اذا خاصهم سميتو ولا هذيك السندات ذات سميتو الامد البعيد. مني جاو ها هما الناس بغاو فلوسهم، الفلوس ما كاينش في البنك، الناس خرجوا فلوسهم كاملين في خطره واحده، البنك خاصو يخلص هاد الناس. البنك ما عندوش الفلوس، استثمرهم في السندات. السندات طلعت القيمه ديال الفائده، ما بقاش ساويين والو، يعني خاصو يبيعهم بالخساره، يعني خاسر. اوكي خاسر، يعني ما يمكنش تشري انت واحد الحاجه بفلوس ديال الناس بواحد الثمن طالع وغاز تشري ما تيهمكش كاع بشحال كتشري، شويه الفائده كتطلع، الثمن ديال هذوك الاصول هذوك السندات كتنزل لقاع القاع، يعني ما كتبقى ساويه 4 دريال كما تنقولوا بالدارجه. والناس كيتسناوك تعطيهم فلوسهم، شنو غدير؟ راه هذا هو المشكل دابا اللي طرا لهم، مشكل صافي. وهذا الشيء كان دارو ترامب، لان كان واحد القانون ديال فرانك شي حاجه. نقدر نعطيكم الفيديو تصنتوا ليه كامل، غتمشيو لنا لذاك كاين واحد الفيديو سميتو ديال المحلل الاقتصادي. نعطي لكم هنايا وتصنتوا لهذاك الفيديو تفهموا هذاك العجب كامل. اوكي. Trump crashed banks. دابا نعطيكم اللين، غنحطو لكم تحت هذا الفيديو هذا باش تفرجوا فيه راه بالعربيه، باش سميتو المعلومات عن. فهذا هو الفيديو. كوبي ذا لينك، نجيبوه هنا نحطوه هنا باش نوري لكم بعدا، وابخي نحطو اللين ديالو في الفيديو. فهذا هو الفيديو.
U.S. investment bank Lehman Brothers collapsed, unleashing a global financial crisis.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street? None of these people have a clue of what's going on.
A crash that most experts did not foresee.
Big trouble for millions of Americans. It was the biggest bankruptcy in history.
في سنة 2010 كان العالم.
هذا هو الفيديو، غنحطو لكم المهم في التحت وشوفوه وتفرجوا فيه باش تفهموا شنو طاري. اوكي. المهم هذا السيد هذا راه بسطو بابسط الحوايج الممكن باش الناس يفهموا شنو كاين. فمن الاحسن تفرج فيه باش تفهموا، راه كلشي نديرو بالعربيه تما، راه ما فيه لا فرونسي لا اونجلي. اوكي. نفوتوا هذاك الشيء دابا. نشوفوا دابا كما قلنا البيتكوين غيمشي تيستي جيت 25 الشورت. دابا الناس ديال الشورت هما اللي تيقلبوا دابا على شي اونطري من هنايا تجي 28 100 ويمشيو مع هذا الشيء، لا عاود رجع لجهه 28 وديك الساعه تيدخلوا في الشورت. بالنسبه للعملات الاخرين كاملين دابا غياكلوا العصا ديال بصح، لان ديجا كياكلوا العصا بلا كاع ما زاد هو ب $8000 وهما ما زادوش بزاف. دابا غيزيد ينزل غيوصلهم الحضيض. نشوفوا الكاسبا، عندي بزاف ديال الناس هنايا عزيز عليهم كاسبا. وديك الساعه نساليو هذا اللايف هذا لان درنا اللايف على حساب الاجتماع. كاسبا اجي لا كاسباج يلا دوزت هنا. ها هي. هولي مولي الكاسبا اجي تيستي عاوتاني هنا جيت 15. خاصها تبقى هنا انزو والا ميعادنا 12 ماشي حتى 12. هنايا جيت ل10. فنتمناو انها تبقى فوق 50. نكبروا هذا شويه، الدولار ما بقاش تيهمنا. غنحيد الدولار، خلينا ننزل البيسي شويه هكا الكاميرا باش نشوف المونيتور الاخر ولا السكرين الاخرى. نحيدو قلنا الدولار. اوكي ها هو حيدنا الدولار. اوكي رجعوا هنايا. بالنسبه للكاسبا خصها تبقى فوق هاد سميتو الفابوناتشي لاين اللي هو ديال 50 الا بغيناها تبقى بوزيتيف. سينو غاتيستي هاد الجوج هادو ديال 65 و 60. هاد الجوج الا ما وقفوش بسلامه يعني تحت جوج الاصفار ان شاء الله، تحت جوج الاصفار. نتمناو انها تهولدي. الا ما هولداتش فكما قلنا لكم راه غتنزل. فالمارشي عرفتوا البيتكوين تيحكم على جميع العملات، يعني البيتكوين لا يعرف الكاسبا خاصها تطلع ولا الكاسبا خاصها تنزل. فالبيتكوين لا يعطي مجال للرحمة للعملات الأخرى متى يكون نازل. اوكي نديرو الدايلي باش نفهمو انا شنو كاين، حيت هادشي بزاف فيه. اوكي نشوفو هنايا شكون اللي واكل العصا مزيان. اللي واكل العصا هو اويل. هادي تهاكات، هادي داو فيها ماشي هادي، لا ماشي هادي، الأخرى أويل ماشي هذه، قلت واش هي هذيك. أوكي الرين بوم بوم. البيتكوين راه باقي جاي نازلة الإخوان. شوفوا السي كوين كلشي غيتبعو كلشي. دابا أحسن بلاصة هي تدخل شورت، أحسن حاجة هي تدخل شورت في هاد اللحظات. شورت أوكي أوبي. الأوبي غاتجي لهنايا إن شاء الله. اوكي مينا اجريسيف. درت صحيح اكزاكتلي فين درنا لي هذاك الخط المتقطع الثاني ماشي الاول. اذا الاول مشى تيستا 27 و100، يعني نفس الشمعة ديال هادي اللي هنا، نفس النهاية ديالها. يعني دابا غيعاود يرجع يهرسها مزيان، دابا غيهرسها. اوكي سو تسناو في 25 الإخوان، نشوف واش 25 غتهولدي ولا ما تهولديش. فنحيدو هادو بالنسبة للديلي، هادو ديال التحليل ديالهم شحال هادي. سالينا اختراق ديال كدا تم، وهذا في سمول تايم فريم. هادو كاملين سمول تايم فريم، يعني الوقت الزمني صغير. إلا شفتو كان غادي في واحد المثلث صاعد، دائما في المثلث كيكون بحال هكا، حيت إلا جبنا هاد المثلث هذا وعبرنا على هذا يعطينا نفس الشيء، غير هو مختلف. حيدنا هاد الماغنيت هذا تقريبا بحال هكا. هذا بوشها الفوق، نشوفو هادي اللي هنا، وهادي بوشات هذا مثلث آخر، بوشته هو الفوق. نشوفو آخر واحد اللي سال هنا، نبدا من هنا هذا لتحت، والآخر تا هو تبعو يعني bump up down. okay alright. قلت لكم الإخوان البيتكوين، قلتها لكم ذاك النهار، قلت لكم واحد يومين هادي، قلت لكم بيتكوين امبوسيبل يديباسي 30. هادشي زعما إلا اخترق هذيك ديال 28. فإلا شفتوه دابا هو جاي تيجري، شد دير نية، سير 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 سير. اوكي ستراكتور ديال البرايس دابا تهرسات، ولا دابا نازله مابقاتش طالعه، واخا يحاولوا ان يرفعوها ما غاديش تطلع. سو نعطيكم بعد هاد اللين ديال هاد الفيديو قبل ما نساوه. اوكي وديك الساعات نمشيو نتريديو مع راسنا غويش كما قالوا الالمان، نمشيو نتريديو ترونكيل. اوكي مانج مانج داك اللايف. ها هو هذا اللي حنا فيه دابا، نديرو هكذا ونديرو content analytics. جود باي كريبتو. الفي ام سي ميتينغ ما تيلعبش، ما فيش تخرشيش. قلت عليكم قبل ما يبدا الفي ام سي ميتينغ، قلت لكم على الاخوان كاين اجتماع مهم هذا النهار، ردوا ليه البال وحذاري. ما بغيتش ندير لكم شي فيديو طويل وبقى نهضر معكم. المهم نبقى نعاود لكم الخرافات تما بزاف. كان 15 ثانيه على هذاك الشورت. المهم قد اعذر من انذر، هذا ما كان، لأن كان دار نفس الشيء دار في 15 في 14 فبراير، ولكن داروه كانوا بامباوه. كان خاصو ينزل نورمالمون، لأن كان الفيوم سي ميتينغ كان نيجاتيف، فكان خاصو ديك الساعات ينزل وما داروا لي العكس. ودابا باش زادوا 25 نقطة، باش تزيد 25 نقطة في خطرة واحدة راه بزاف. هذاكشي ماشي نورمال. يعني شحال قد راه قالها كوبيلا هذاك سميتو المتحدث الرسمي ديال الفيدرال ريزيرف، قال لك دابا وصلنا لواحد البلاصه صافي ما غاديش نبقاو نزيدو سعر الفائده. غنوصلوا دابا لواحد المرحله، ولا وصلنا لواحد المرحله صافي اللي غنخصنا نتخذوا فيها اجراءات صارمه. مي تيقول لك غنتاخذوا اجراءات صارمه في المره الماجيه، يعني هذا ميساج غير مباشر للناس اللي مستثمرين في ستوك ماركت انهم يبيعوا ويخرجوا في حالهم. يعني المره الاخرى قد يخرج بشي قرار اللي بشكل او ستوك ماركت يدير فوف ينزل، فهمتي؟ فسولاتو نيت واحد الصحفيه ما عرفت في الاخر، قالت ليه هذاك السوفت، حيت كان قال واحد الخطره في واحد الاجتماع، قال ليه السوفت لاندين، لا غنحاولوا ما امكن ندير واحد السوفت لاندين، يعني واحد النزول. المهم نحاولوا نتكيسوا على الناس. فقالت ليه كيفاش هذاك السوفت لاندينغ، وحاول ما امكن هو ما يجاوبهاش مباشره، تجاوز السؤال ديالها بواحد الطريقه فنيه زوينه. عاودوا رجعوا لسميتو وشوفوا تقريبا الاخر ديال الفيديو، ديك 10 دقائق ولا ما عرفت ربع ساعه، ما كملاش 10 دقائق الاخر ديال الفيديو ديال الاجتماع، باش تسمعوا السؤال ديالها. فقال لهم غنوصلوا واحد المرحله راه ما بقاش مازال غنديروا معكم الفلاقه. اوكي ايوا هذاك كما قلت كما قال اللي قد اعذر من انذر. فانا نشوف هنا السيبور عندنا 27، يعني دابا اوكي عندنا الشمعة ديال 3 نقولوا كاع ديال دقيقة. اوكي حنا كي غاديين. اوكي ديال دقيقة غلق تحت 27,600، ديال 3 دقائق غلق تحت 28,400، وغلق عاوتاني هنا تحت 27,500 ديال 5 دقائق، غلق في 28,400، وهذا غلق في 27,500. ربع ساعة، 1 2 3 4 تقريبا 4 فيهم كاملين. دابا حنا في 4 السادسة. شوفوا واش غتغلق تحت 27,500. let's see حيت ممكن نديرو هنا مثلا كامل liquidity gap راه هي اللي غتكون هنا دابا البلاصات. alright اوكي نحيدو هاد كثرة الخطوط، واخا مهمين نحيدوهم. big short هذا اللي ديجا هضرنا عليه شحال هادي طرا استفدنا منه الحمد لله، مشى هادي مشات. ليك حقا ما حقا غنمشيو $125,000. تا كيفاش درتو ليها في البير ماركت نيت في الكساد والاقتصاد والابناك تطيح طايح اكثر من نايض البلايين ديال الدولارات مشات وباغي تمشي ترفع بيتكوين $125,000. اللي تيق هذيك ديك الكذبه خاصو فعلا تصرفيق هذيك السرعه كاع وفي هاد لي كونديسيون هادو من نيتك قال لي واحد من نيتك العود هي هادي من نيتك العود نيتك اوكي هذا ديال فين هذا ديال 23,900 سي اوكي غنديرو ليه بحال هكدا باش ما نبرسطوش بزاف الشارت 20,900 اوبس هكذا احسن وغنجيبو واحد اخر وغنديرو هنايا انستاد في هذا الاخر الكبير هادشي يبقى منظم واخا ما تيبانش ليكم منظم راه منظم هاي 22 هذا نحيدو حتى هو هذا سهل هذا سهل alright so مرحبا به في 26 راه سلم على 26 قرب يسلم عليها غتمشيو حتى لهنا عاوتاني حتى 24 27 400 بري نعاودو نرجعو اذا فإلا جينا نشوفو كاع نديرو ليه بحال هكدا alright إذا حيدس هذا هذا الخط هذا نجيبو هنا نجيبو حنا كاع هنا معنا هذا غيكون بحال هكدا طق هذا حيدو تا هو ابري goodbye 27 see you later شوفوك شي نهار واحد 3 شهور عاوتاني 4 شهور ولا الله أعلم alright إذا المنطقة هنا المنطقة هي هنا بوم اوكي إذا هادي قلنا اش غنديرو ليها اوكي عرفت دابا يلا تفكرت اش كنا غنديرو ليها كوبي اوبس ونجيبو هاد السيد هذا نديرو بحال هكدا اكزاكتلي هنايا نجيبو دوريا اوكي وغنبداو واحد اخر جديد اللي غيكون تا هو بحال هكا شحال هادي 19 اوكي هاد سنتين بحال شوفو نقاط الالتقاء alright let's take this for as an example alright let's take this and put this هنايا يعني شلحوه يوهو يتسانو. هي هادي دابا. مرحبا ب26. حنا دابا 26,800. اوكي هناك سالت خدمتو نجيبو هنا. غادي نحسبوها دابا ريفيرس. 1 باك سايد. ديما الناس الواعرين تيبامبيو الثمن الفوق تينزلو معاه من الفوق للتحت. الواعرين تيطلعو كيتنزلو. alright, let's take this. This is not a joke, but alright. درجة 15. alright. يس واحدة هنا، الثانية هنا بام، الثالثة، وهالرابعة كانت فيك. هذه كانت فيك. 26 هادو غينزل فيهم ديريكت. شوفوا هنا. alright. شوفوا 25. نعاودو نرجعو للشارت اللي كان عندنا قبيلة ديال البيتكوين نيتس اللي هو هذا. جميل جدا. 26,700. اوكي 26,700 ديريكت 25. يلا
مباشرة معكم لايف تنشوفوا
نتيجة الاجتماع واللي هي كانت سلبية بامتياز، وكان فيها تلاعب هنا شوية ديال الثمن. يعني حاولوا يخرجوا الناس اللي كانوا شورت، يعني دخلوا شورت يعني مبكرا، حيدوهم من هنا، حيدوا الناس ديال لونغ ديال صحاب 28,800 وهاهما نازلين بوحدهم. يعني ما ندخلوا شي شورت حنايا، ندخلوا شورت. let's short. alright. اوكي شكون يمكوموندي شي حاجة؟ لا قالك اسيدي verification code. بينونس ما بغاتش تلوغينات. اوكي سويتش فيريفيكيشن نديرو ليها اوثنتيكيشن نمشيو هنايا نديرو ليها اوثنتيكيشن باينانس setting time correction synchronization app البيتكوين 26700 get started ودي بلاش خلي هادشي مرة أخرى maybe later لا نمشيو شكون دابا 96 من 1 ل 96 ديريكت different wow short اوكي اش عندنا هنايا عندنا 28 alright hour 30 minutes okay صار 40 دقيقة ساعتين سوايع alright هادي مزيانة غادي ندير 4 سوايع اوكي نشوفو 15 دقيقة إلا شفتو 15 دقيقة نزلنا على الموفين افريجز بجوج في 30 دقيقة مازال ما كروسيناش يعني نزلنا عليهم ولكن مازال ما كروسيناش 45 حتى هي نزلنا مازال ما كروسيناش نفس الشيء بالنسبة للساعة الساعتين دخلنا فيهم بجوج مازال ما كروسيناش 3 سوايع دخلنا فيهم بجوج مازال ما كروسيناش 4 سوايع جينا فوق ديال 50 اللي هو 26,500 نشوفو الديلي اشنو تيقول الديلي تيقول هنا شاخ الديلي تيقول 23,500 هذا راه بالدولار ماشي باليو اس دي تي 23,500 يقد يكون معايا الى تم جاي نازل هذا غيزيد يطلع عند المؤشر ديال الموفين افريجز اكسبوننشال والاخر الايماي غيجيو يطلعوا حتى لهنايا اذا غيكونوا هنا في شي 25 اذا الاعين كلها على 25 a big daily candle is coming امين اوكي نشوفو 4 سوايع شنو غدير راه باقي جاي نازل اوكي عرفتي ينزل فيها يدخل فيها ديريكت لتحت بو قريب للعودة. أريح مش مفش. جميل جميل. إذا نشوفوا هاد اللايف فين وصل. جوج ستة. ربعة جوج. الله. واو. Right. Content. 5. والناس عجبهم هذاك الفيديو ديال الالينوير اللي درت قبيله مع ديك جويه 11 هكا. ما عرفتش واش عزيز عليكم الالينوير. ما غنصور لكم كاع دوك لي زالينوير اللي كاين في الشركه. كاين شي الينويرات هربانين. هذاك الالينوير اللي شفتو كان تيدير اكثر من $5000. اكثر من $5000. اكثر من 5 مليون. محطوط تما اللي بغيتي تلعب لعبت تطلع لك اللعب في الراس عندك الوقت. ولكن هكا تقيسو بوف كلشي داكشي تيطير. ديك الماشين عندهم تطير مع الطيور. البيتكوين ديريكت ل25 وربما أقل. احنا نشوفوه لايف. سير دير نية بيتكوين. سير دير نية. ما تسدش في هذيك. لا ما تطلعش في نفس البلاصه. ما ديرش لنا ديك بوليش حرامي تما كاين وديك بيريش حرامي. كاين واحد الشمعة سميتها بوليش حرامي. هادي ديال 4 ديال ساعة. هادي عامرة ما فيهاش اللعب. مسكين. شفتوا هادو الخضرين ديال الساعة عامرين ما فيهمش اللعب. وكذلك متى يكونوا حمرين ضروري تبيعهم وحدة ولا جوج اخرين عامرين حمرين. شتيهم حمرين هنا عامرين. هادي تاهي الساعة فوف من 23 لا 21. alright. علاش تنبي اوكي هذا كار. هاي زيد. alright. اما كما قلت لكم نعاود لكم نرجع للالينوير. كون عرفت واش كدا نحلوه حنا كاع تما كاين. نوري لكم كاع من الداخل كي داير. اوكي. alright. dashboard. نديرو شويه المزيكا. الا كاين شي واحد كيشوف اللايف دابا ولا شي حاجه باغي يسول شي حاجه يسولها مع حد قبل ما نسدو اللايف. راه نبقاو نزيدوها شويه نسدو اللايف. وغنطلقو دابا شويه المزيكا باش ننساو العالم. ما أعرف بس أعرف ما أبلغ عن النوع. Alright, هذا الدولار اوكي exactly وقفنا خرجتها مش أنا هنايا يعني invalidé invalid اوكي هذه صافي انفاليد 22. يا اخوان بالنسبه للاجتماع ديال الاف ام سي راه تلقاوه في الشانيل ديالهم اوفيسيال اللي هي فيدرال ريزيرف. هو راه يلاه لونساو راه فيه 43 دقيقه. كاين واحد فيه 43 وكاين واحد فيه 7 دقائق. اذا هذا سالينا منه. الماركر نو والله راه كاين هنا نيت نو كيف شوف هنا super simple سميتو super simple highlighter. okay super simple highlighter ماشي جيميل no okay super simple highlighter. شنو هو store simple super highlighter. اوكي هنا لوغو اللي عنده اللوغو ديال الزرق super simple highlighter super simple سوري ديال نعم هو هذا غنحيدو هاد الاخر لا خليهم بجوج كاع. هنا pretty crunch دابا مين جانا حنا هاد اوكي نديرو لها هكا نديرو ليه ريموف goodbye alright دابا عاوتاني هادي من جهة تحيد شي حاجة وتجيك شي حاجة يلو نورمالمون دابا ملي خصني ندير دابا هنا نهايلايتي هاد التكست هادي خصها تولي بالصفر ريد مخداماش نشوفو هنا في هاد السيت اي اكزاكتلي راه خصو يخدم بحال هكا ولكن why is not working Alright, so create new start نمشيو دابا نسدو نشوفو هنا اوكي نشوفو في بوينت تيليغراف واش غيخدم ولا مايخدمش Bitcoin price web swaps and that says rate hikes may not be appropriate. Exactly. نديرو مثلا انا خدام ولكن ما خدامش في سيت الفاين نديرو red مثلا market's taking Fed decision as slightly dovish as per word widening statement makes pause in May more likely. Fed now says that some additional full farming may be appropriate. Okay. This is downgrade from previous statement. Dollar drops. Gold, Bitcoin stock rise. Yield curve stiffens. On the left, describe how cash prioritizing local banking continues hiking. هذا راه زعما خبر خايب بالنسبه للابناء نمشيو نشوف واش ندايرين اي اي فيرست بانك باقا غادي نازله غادا نازله ان شاء الله زيرو كريديت سويس هانئا نزلت تحت الزيرو. نزلت تحت $1. كنا كنهضروا عليها البارح هنايا، لا ما تولي البارح كانت بجوج. شو ديريك شا ودي اش قال لك بيتكوين 30,000 120 125. ضحكوا على الوقت. البنك اوف امريكا كوربريت هو نفس الشيء. يونايتد ايرلاينز هولدينج هذه الخطوط الملكية ديال الامريكان. واش هاد لالين غيهولدي ولا ما يهولديش؟ نشوفو سيتي بانك، سيتي جروب، هي كلهم غيجيو ينزلوا، كلهم غياكلوا العصا. جي بي مورغان هو جاي نازل. جي بي مورغان ناقص ب2% في اليوم. بي بان هادي واحد الشركة زوينة الصراحة، ولكن سمارت شيتس. بالنسبة لسمارت شيتس هذا كيقد يكون خبر مزيان. اوكي فايزر فايزر اصحاب الفاكسين صافي سهل عليهم الجد، ما يعطيهم الغرق. يا سويل شوفوا الثمن ديال القطن 77. نشوفوا الثمن ديال القمح. القمح كاين من تحت وايت، قمح الويت. الثمن ديال القمح تا هو جاي نازل 600. سكايلينك اير بي ام بي من 81 ل 21. داني ابل 123 100 وكذا. مايكروسوفت نزيدو على الشركة أخرى. ديل تكنولوجيز نديرو ديل حيت داير انا كريبتو داكشي علاش ما طالعش. اوكي ديل تكنولوجيز here we go. هادي في الألمان نديرو الناس داك هو صافي. الناس داك أمريكان وصافي كما أمريكان. هنا عندنا 61 2020 داروا فلوس ديالهم بصح. اي 12 $12 شحال 60. كاينه في الريزيستنس دابا سي بور ماشي ريزيستنس. ديال 65 و 68. next هي 28. 28 غتكون هنا. one, two, three, four, five. مشات ب5. 2, 3, 4, 5. شوفوها بالعكس الآخر. A, B, C, D. يا اما هنا يا اما هنا، وحدة بجوج. نمشيو حنا على حسب الماكس وغنديرو ليها Okay, we have first three tests. every test الأولى مازال ما صفاتهاش، نقدر نحسبوها. الثانية 1 2 and this is would be the third هنايا، والفورت ونحلك. So let's change that to this and change this also to this. اوكي خليوها تما. تويتر، لا ماشي تويتر، فينا نمشي اليابان. هي شوف البنود ديال البنك ديال اليابان ديال 10 سنين. واو، أبان لي هادشي انترناسيونال هادشي ديال الابناك. شحال هاديك؟ 68%. اي الظرف شحال؟ واحد في 5 أيام ولا الله أعلم شكون. let's see. ظرف تقريبا شي 12 يوم ولا 13 يوم. شوفوا الباوندز ديال مازال ديال الانجليز هما اللي باقيين شادين. هادو السندات الحكومية ديال 10 سنين ديال الانجليز. طلعوا باش طالعين تا هما راه ماشي نورمال، شي راه انورمال. او فهمتو شي هنا تحت لا لين. شي مزيان، شي مزيان. It's not good here. اغلق تحت الترند لاين اللي كان جاي من تحت. ممكن نجيبو مازال داك الترند لاين يولي بحال هكا. قربو مزيان يكون more accurate. نجيبو بحال هكا باش يكون more accurate كما تيقولوا. نجيبو بحال هكا لا حنا لا. That's not good. هنا داير لينا هاد القبة هنايا. ماتياش قال You cannot stop it from shining through. هذه راه ماشي shining through. You cannot stop it from falling down through. الداي عملة الداي stable coin. شوفوا جوجل يا جوجل. اوكي لا هنا هو where are you يا صاحبي؟ لا ما يا صاحبي لا بالدري الصغار. here we go. هذه حيدة هذيك اوكي. S&P 500 نمشي نشوفو بي تي سي في نوصل. دابا عاد يستريح في 27 دابا يكمل التراجيل تحت. اوكي اوكي سدات تحت 61. جبنا سدات عاوتاني تحت 62 61 تحت 0.65 0.61. والبارح واليو البارح سدات تحت 50. اها هذه داون هذه up 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 up. تبقى تجي تاي هنا ديك الساعة تشوف أسفل السافلين نتايا. واخا هي سندات حكومية إلى 10 سنين غايدعموها مزيان، ولكن كتوصل لواحد المرحلة واخا تدفع فيها الفلوس حتى هي صافي نازلة يبير. نتفليكس right نشوفوا okay where is the
kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. Some days I feel skinnier than all the other days. Sometimes I can't tell if my body belongs to me. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell. I wanna taste consumption. Breathe faster to waste oxygen. Hear the children sing aloud. It's music till the wick burns out.
So, one, two, one, two,
okay, this considered to be really strong. Okay, so let's put this. No, hold on. Good. No, good.
Burning the bridge that keeps us. I'm here and I'm feeling. Exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still. Hanging in the balance, not the life I want to live. I want to take it all, standing tall. Fear I weighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see.
got to see. هذه أطلع بالنسبة right. تقريبا نفس اللي تكون هنا ولكن صغيرة. بوب بوب. Alright, so let's delete that. Oops. Oops. اوكي نسخوها نشوفوا. نسخوها. اوبس 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 اوبس. تقريبا بحال هكا غتكون. makes sense. It makes sense. Exactly. في 68 65 في نفس البلاطة ديريكت. هذا فاش كاينة $2. اوكي. باف.
We are dreaming in the dark. We are nothing more than dust. Search but you stay lost. We are reaching for the stars, but we're making this too hard. And I wonder where you are. Mysterious, that's the part you always show. 'Cause you're too curious. Maybe you should take it slow.
Okay, crossed here. على الخلف. Okay. ليش أوه. 23 فبراير 700 واو.
Listen! Like a Hellcat. Like a Hellcat.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it out. Tonight, we're gonna let it
Didn't stay on the spot. Stop loss.